So I typically don't like to do a video on a player or a team and then do another one on them like a couple days later. But I kind of have to in the case of the Phoenix Suns, because I was writing them off because of the DeAndre Ayton suspension. And the Phoenix Suns are currently 4-2. And they look so much more like an actual basketball team that it's kind of insane. And I have to talk about them, and there's no way I can go any longer without it. So the Ricky Rubio, Aron Baynes pickups were massive for these guys. I mean, Baynes is shooting the lights out from three, which that's probably not going to sustain itself. But simply having two veterans who can play defense and know their roles and bring, in the case of Baynes, toughness and screen setting and things like that, it can clearly go a very long way. I mean, there was always this thing that would suggest that Baynes was kind of amazing for the Celtics, even if his box score numbers wouldn't pop out like that. And I think it's kind of happening for Phoenix as well, although his box score numbers do pop out a little bit right now. Basketball Reference's little win shares per 48 thing that I like to glance at sometimes. According to that stat, through 6 games, Aron Baynes is like the best player in the league. So there you go. Take that for what it's worth. Now, I don't think it's all Baynes and Rubio, but it's definitely a lot from those two. I mean, this is the thing always with Rubio. Like, yeah, his percentages wouldn't be very good, and the dude shoots like a middle schooler, but, maybe in Utah it was a little awkward because he didn't have the ball as much because of Mitchell, which was the right move for the Jazz. But especially with the Wolves, like, they were always better when Rubio was in the game. Because, between the assists and the rebounding and being kind of very good from the free throw line, even if he doesn't take that many, it just makes the team make a lot more sense. Now Booker doesn't have to handle as much, and he can be that scorer, and his efficiency has been great so far. I mean, Booker managed to improve his efficiency each year, even with everything going on around him. But, like last season, he shot 32% from three, but we all know Devin Booker's a great shooter. It's just when you're taking a lot of moving ones and dudes in your face and all that, and, it's tough. And now Rubio can just make it a little easier for Booker. I mean, here's a neat little stat for you. Basketball Reference, best website in the world. Last season, 58% of Devin Booker's threes were assisted. Okay, so he was attempting nearly half of his threes. Well, not nearly half, but within the same ballpark of half. Off of no pass. It was just him going up with it himself. This year, he's up to 75% of his threes assisted. That is a massive jump. I mean, the closest he's had to that was way back in his second season. His assisted two-pointers are way up as well. Last season, they were at 30%. This year, they're at 49. So Devin Booker's job is a whole lot easier, and he can kind of just be the player he was always meant to be. A dude who, yeah, he can go off the dribble and he can beat guys and all that, but he's got to be flying around and getting set up, at least a little bit. I mean, he definitely showed playmaking chops last season, and maybe by the time he's 26, he can handle the ball every single second. But as of right now, he's not that dude, and that's okay, assuming that the team around you makes sense. And again, it actually kind of makes sense now. And then, between Javon Carter, who's emerged as a dude, and Saric, who's been cool, and Oubre, who's been pretty good, and all that, everything's just kind of making sense a lot more. Tyler Johnson has been solid with his shooting. Cameron Johnson could be something we don't know just yet. Another big thing, and this goes to Baynes, is the rebounding. I don't have it up on NBA.com right now, but I was looking, last season, Phoenix was the worst rebounding team in the league. I think their rebound percentage was 68% or something. This year, they're up to about 75, which I think is mid-tier. So, yeah, it could still be better, but that's huge. I mean, going from bad to average is pretty wild. An interesting thing, they're actually fouling more this season than last year. I thought Monty Williams was going to flip that, and, that could just be whatever. I don't think it's anything to really freak out about. But, you know, I was expecting that. I was not expecting to see that when I started diving into the numbers. You know, maybe that means something. Maybe it doesn't. They are allowing the most amount of free throws so far. So, you know, is it possible that their currently 7th best defense is going to fall back down to earth a little bit? I mean, probably, just because when you look at the personnel, like, it would be pretty wild if they finished top 10 in defense, but I think it's fair to expect that they can be decent, which still is like a massive improvement. And DeAndre Ayton was looking better defensively before he got suspended. And to dive into the defense a little bit, you know, I went through the numbers and I was looking at the points they were giving up and the zones and all that. In terms of just those things, the only real difference I've seen is that they are giving up a few less shots in the restricted area, which is cool. But when you actually watch them and when you cheat and look at things other people have done on Twitter, there's just an attention to everything now. There's more stepping up on screens. There's more crowding of ball handlers. There's more reaching when you're, like, defending on the corner and the ball handler goes by you, on top of, like, Baynes and Rubio and Javon Carter being kind of awesome as an on-ball defender. Like, we got to keep an eye on him, definitely. He could be a role player god this year, no doubt. And also, can we appreciate that the 2 losses the Phoenix has had were both by 1 point? There's a world in which the Phoenix Suns are 6-0 right now. That is insane to think about, based on what this team has been the last couple seasons. And, you know, the Rubio signing was not well received by people. I don't want to defend myself too much because I wasn't doing a parade over it. I liked it, but I didn't like that they had to give up TJ Warren in the process. But clearly we were all wrong, okay? All the Suns fans who were like, yo, what the hell, dude? Y'all said we needed a point guard. We got a point guard and y'all still didn't like it. You guys were right. 100%, okay? So run your victory lap. And you want to know what's even more wild? Based on what's happened with the Warriors, the fact that the Kings have been a disaster, the fact that Zion is hurt, Phoenix Suns may have a real chance at the playoffs, man. Now, it's still tough. There's still a solid, 10 teams who want to get in there, especially now because it seems the Wolves are kind of good. So it'll be tough, and if you force me to pick, I'm going to continue to not be a believer and say they wouldn't make it, but they're certainly going to make this a lot more interesting than we thought going into this whole thing. So you know what? Bravo to the Phoenix Suns.